Hi, I'm Chris Brown, Fleet Group Editor at Bobbit, and welcome to the next episode of Fast Forward interview series. Fast Forward is about connecting leaders in fleet, tech, and automotive to show what the future holds for fleets of all types. In this episode, I interview Spencer Patton, founder and president of Patton Logistics, one of the largest FedEx Ground contractor fleets in the U.S. Spencer and I will discuss the incredible pressures facing last-mile delivery fleets today, especially with supply chain issues and high fuel prices. He'll talk about how those issues are being addressed and about how these challenges are leading up to what he's calling PurpleFriday. Well, Spencer, hey, thanks for joining us on this edition of Fast Forward.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sure thing. For the uninitiated, let's start with this exploding market of contractors for Amazon, for FedEx Ground, obviously, how that's grown in the last 5 or 6 years, and then the market kind of in general for last mile delivery.
So most of the United States has no clue that the person coming to your door wearing a FedEx uniform, driving a FedEx Ground truck is not actually a FedEx Ground employee. FedEx Ground contracts out 100% of their entire network to about 6,000 small business owners across the United States. So we're not franchisees, but you could look at it in a lot of the similar ways, is that we own delivery territories on the last mile side or on the 18-wheeler side, where we own the tractors and we pull FedEx Ground trailers from one location to another. We have distinct territories or responsibilities in our contracts that FedEx Ground pays us for. And as I mentioned, most of us have somewhere between 10 and 25 employees. My organization, I'm one of the largest FedEx Ground contractors in the United States. I'm based in Nashville, Tennessee, have about 225 employees with 275 trucks on the road across 10 different states.
Okay, great. And do you happen to know what the Amazon side of the fence looks like by chance?
So Amazon, there's about 2,300 Amazon DSPs. They're called delivery service partners. The model is very similar to the FedEx Ground space, but there's some important nuances and distinctions between the two. Amazon DSPs traditionally do not own their vehicles. They have leases that are heavily subsidized by Amazon, and Amazon DSPs don't have as strong of a case for equity in their business that they're able to sell something, whereas FedEx Ground, the entire model is built upon the equity that we have in our delivery territory. So we're able to sell that territory to someone else. So no matter what zip code each of you that are listening are living in, there is a FedEx Ground contractor that owns the package delivery rights for your zip code. And if you wanted to, you might be able to structure a deal to purchase that from them.
In terms of vehicles, I mean, we're talking step vans / walk-in vans. Some, like cargo vans. Line haul would be running Class 8 tractor trailers. Do I have that pretty much right?
That's all accurate. That's right.
Okay, great. Let's get into some of the issues that the industry is facing. I mean, we can sort of intuit what that is because we're all facing it in fleet. I mean, it's inflationary pressures around fuel and hiring and part sourcing and all that. But it's pretty acute when it comes to your world. So let's get into that.
So one of the unique nuances of our business is that we don't have any control over our top line revenue. So most other transportation businesses, when your input costs go up, things like fuel and wages and vehicle costs, stuff that all of us are experiencing, our input costs going up, there's at least the optionality to continue to pass that through to a customer. That's not in the cards for us as contractors to FedEx Ground because we have operating agreements that last 12 to 18 months. So we have no ability to pass through increased costs. So we are 100% at the mercy of FedEx Ground to make, in extreme cases like this, mid-contractual adjustments. So a lot of people think, well, why wouldn't FedEx just kind of rub their hands together and say, you know what, we got one over on these small business owners. We're going to hold them to the contract and we'll stretch that as long as we can. And the part that has historically kept it in balance is that FedEx Ground contracting out 100% of their network, if they allow their contractors to financially struggle to the degree where they collapse, then so too does FedEx Ground's entire delivery network. So that has always kept things in balance historically, but that has not been the case over the last 9 months. And that's what I've been so vocal about in the media and all sorts of different publications, is that FedEx Ground's very network is at risk, and it is far more severe than what anyone has an idea about. We've been leading an educational campaign, and just last week I did an interview on Fox Business News, and it has gotten the level of traction. We had 5 million views in 72 hours over our coverage of what's going on in this space, because FedEx Ground and that delivery network is vital to the US economy. And if it is in as harsh of a financial state as I'm saying it is, then we are needing to learn about that and be educated. And so to highlight that, we had our annual expo this last weekend where 60% of all the FedEx Ground contractors in the United States came to Las Vegas in an expression of, hey, this is not just Spencer Patton saying that it's bad. This is a network-wide challenge.
Yeah. And there's, I mean, let's talk a little bit maybe about some other pain points, and then maybe a couple of solutions or ways we can sort of address this, because these operators are really having to get more efficient. One thing I just wanted to mention too is, like accidents. There's, certain contractual obligations with accidents. Can you touch on that for just a second?
So we have a great benefit in that we do not carry any general liability insurance at all. We as contractors operate under FedEx Ground's DOT number. So we don't have our own DOT number. So as a result, FedEx Ground indemnifies us against all liability that we do to the general public, which sounds like a really good deal and is a vital deal to any profitability potential that we would have. So we have responsibility for the first $5,000 worth of any damage that we do, and FedEx Ground covers the remainder above and beyond that. They also cover us in the event of litigation. All of those things are critical pieces to allowing a small business owner to have a chance of being profitable in this space. Now, FedEx Ground over the last 12 months has paid over $1 billion in indemnification claims on behalf of accidents that have happened from contractors. And so FedEx Ground has made announcements that they are increasing the pressure that they're putting on contractors financially related to safety performance, which on one hand sounds on face like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. They're spending more than $1 billion. They need to get these contractors to be more in line. But there's a lot of depth to that story that is more than just what meets the surface. FedEx Ground puts a ton of restrictions on who we can hire and that process of how we go through that. And what it ends up doing is that it filters down our applicant pool to such a small minority of the US population that we are often having to hire people that if they have a heartbeat and they can fog a mirror, they're good to roll, right? And that is not how I want to be hiring people. So part of the efforts that FedEx Ground is putting in to improve safety is actually the very thing that's causing the safety challenges, because such a large swath of the US population is classified by FedEx as ineligible to operate with us, when I certainly wouldn't see it the same way.
Right. Okay. And I mean, let's just sort of talk about solutions, what these operators can do, because, your issues, these contractors' issues are fairly acute. And I think a lot of our fleet listeners could really say, yeah, I'm there with you. But it's about route efficiency. First of all, it's about trying to save fuel. It's about hiring better. What are some of the things that these contractors are looking to do to, make themselves more efficient on their side?
Yeah, I think there's always two equations here. You can either lower expenses or increase revenue. And so we already talked about earlier that the increasing revenue part is something that our hands are incredibly tied. We're at the full mercy of FedEx Ground, whether they deem it fit to increase our revenue or not. So for the expense side, this is another part that usually baffles people. So the 6,000 FedEx Ground contractors spend about $15 billion per year in collective procurement. So fuel and vehicles and uniforms and everything you can imagine. And we largely buy as individuals at retail rates. There is no accumulation of purchasing power in any capacity. For this $15 billion industry, we will literally go to a Ford dealership and buy a step van at the same price as any listener here would be able to get that same step van. And that's just insane. So one of the things that we announced at our expo was the Route Consultant Purchasing Alliance. And so Route Consultant is the name of my business and the one that hosted the expo. So this purchasing alliance brings in 5 inaugural vendors, multi-billion-dollar vendors that want to sell product to this industry of 6,000 contractors. And so it is the first ever assembly of purchasing power to be able to reduce costs, take advantage of our collective procurement, and then pass those savings through to contractors, because we recognize this is a belt tightening season for everybody. We have to tighten our belt, and so does FedEx Ground. It's only a part of the equation, and that revenue component needs to change as well. But we can only control what we can control, and that expense side is the element that we can control right now.
Yeah, I mean, actually, at the expo, you mentioned ways that these fleets are going to be saving on fuel, like up to 25 cents a gallon.
On unleaded, right? And it's one thing, it's like everybody's used to the big savings on diesel,
right?
And saying, okay, 30, 40 cents on diesel. We have found a way, due to our collective spend, to be able to save 25 cents per gallon, even on unleaded fuel. And it's broader than the FedEx industry. It's not just you have to be a FedEx Ground contractor. It is a more broad swath of fuel savings that we've been able to utilize our spend to actually be able to get meaningful savings.
Okay, do I have this right that you don't have to be a FedEx contractor in that to be able to be part of the collective, or?
That's correct. You do not have to be part of a FedEx. You don't have to be a FedEx Ground contractor. There's different products in the purchasing alliance that are really tailored towards FedEx, but some of them are not at all. It is industry agnostic in being able to participate. We, as I mentioned, have 5 inaugural vendors. So we have organizations like Bridgestone that's in there. We have a benefits organization. We have the employee retention tax credit through an organization called Silicon Ledger. That is an enormous part. And just for a moment, for any of your listeners that maybe haven't explored that employee retention tax credit, the government came out not long ago, just 4 weeks ago, and said that of all the businesses that qualify for the employee retention tax credit, 70% do not know and have not applied. And a lot of people have just gone to their accountants and asked, hey, do I qualify for this ERTC thing? And they get really bad advice, not malicious, it's just bad advice. And so we have processed coming up on $1 billion of tax credits for the transportation industry, much broader than just the FedEx space. So there's all of these things that when you bring everybody together in this alliance, it allows not just FedEx Ground contractors to be able to succeed, but the broader industry as well.
Yeah, suffice it to say, contact your tax accountant on that one, but understand that there is a sweet spot there for this market, right? For these entrepreneurs running 25, routes, right?
There is, as it relates to the ERTC, it is a very broad industry. I mean, we're doing this work at Silicon Ledger for boutique healthcare surgery centers, doing it for gyms, doing it for transportation companies. If you had an impact from COVID, there's a lot of ways to be able to classify that, then that credit is available. And it's a really compelling piece where a lot of CPAs just don't have any training in it. They don't know. And so there's a lot of bad advice being given. And so that's really where, Silicon Ledger, as the alliance member, has been a truth seeker and a truth bringer that has the average credit for a FedEx Ground contractor is $565,000. And that's a check coming from the IRS. It's not like a credit of future tax. It's meaningful. And the average contractor has 10 to 15 employees. So you can kind of see how that can be very big figures for for individuals as those employee counts increase.
Sure. And, I was kind of surprised to hear, let's move over to associations, right? Well, heck, we are seeing an association for this industry spring up right before our eyes. Give us the broad strokes there.
So we announced the Trade Association for Logistics Professionals. Incredibly, there's a basket weaving association. All right. So there's a trade association for really small industries. And incredibly, there's just not a trade association, especially for FedEx Ground contractors. But even for the broader last mile industry, there's a real gap of a trade association and representation in the space. So that's something that we've announced the formation of. And the trade association is going to elect a 10 person board that will direct its initiatives. And we're taking nominations for that through September 9th. So FedEx Ground contractors are nominating themselves. We have some Amazon DSPs that are nominating themselves. And there's going to be an open vote for people. There's no cost to join the trade association. So it's not something you have to pay an upfront fee or anything like that. It's a nonprofit. So it's going to be an organization that I think will have a increasingly present voice in the industry. And that's in the middle of being created right now. That the vote for this committee runs September 12th through the 19th, and then we'll announce that 10-person board.
Wow, that's really exciting. To finish up, let's talk about Purple Friday. I mean, I know it's dare I say controversial, or it's kind of a big thing that's happening with FedEx, corporate and the contractors. But let's get into it. And what's the goal there?
Yeah. So for those that haven't been following the narrative, Purple Friday is a play off of Black Friday. So November 25th of 2022 is Black Friday. We have taken that term and changed it to Purple Friday because of FedEx Ground's Purple Promise that they ensure to customers via their network. And this is a timeline that is set from my business towards FedEx Ground to say, FedEx Ground, you have to restore the financial viability to the ownership of routes. Right now, I am losing money in my daily operations of my own FedEx Ground routes. And so I, as the largest contractor in the United States, will continue to provide service to FedEx Ground until November 25th of 2022. And many of my fellow contractors making their own independent business decisions have also said that November 25th of 2022 will also be their last day of providing service to FedEx Ground if there is not a financial change. Because what's happening is that the overwhelming majority, more than 50% of FedEx Ground contractors are operating at a loss right now. And we're subsidizing FedEx Ground's business, and that is just not a viable path forward. So I am very hopeful that the business that I have constructed for 10 years is not going to be something that is destroyed on November 25th. But the truth is, FedEx Ground has to step up and make financial change. So this has been a very public piece that I can only speak on behalf of my own business due to antitrust concerns that I can't call for a horizontal group boycott or anything of the sort. But what I can say is that this is not just my story. As I mentioned, there was 60% of the entire FedEx Ground network was present under one roof in Vegas, showing that these are concerns that are widely held. And this impacts the entire U.S. economy. FedEx Ground has no network without their contractors. And so to the extent that operations were to cease in a significant capacity on Purple Friday, November 25th, that's going to be very impactful on a large scale.
Wow. We will certainly be following that progress. And listen, that's all the time we have for Spencer. Congratulations on coalescing a wonderful event and really coalescing an industry, and we'll be following it as this develops.